Let's talk about camera gear, because everyone's always making videos about what camera gear you should buy, best camera gear for beginners, best top 10 camera gear under $100, myself included, but there's a lot of camera gear out there that you just really don't need to worry about when you're starting out as a photographer or videographer, and that's what I want to talk about today. As I'm sure you know by now, camera gear is so expensive, so when you're buying camera gear, especially when you're starting out, you want to be putting your money towards the right things, and you don't want to be wasting money on stuff you don't need. So here's a list of camera gear that, in my opinion, you absolutely don't need to worry about wasting your money on when you're starting out. Number 1, a full frame camera. There's a lot of talk about full frame cameras and it's always a selling feature when a camera has one, but in reality, it's just not that important. There are a few benefits to getting a full frame sensor, but they're not usually that important to most people. You get better depth of field, you get usually better low light performance, and all of your shots look a little bit more zoomed out compared to a crop sensor. And that last one, depending on what you're shooting, may not even be a benefit, because if you're shooting telephoto, then that crop sensor actually can help you zoom in more. So although there definitely are benefits to a full frame sensor, a full frame sensor usually means more professional leaning cameras, which usually means a lot more money than your regular Rebel camera. For example, compare the Canon R6, which is what I have, to the Canon R7. The Canon R6 is a full frame sensor with 20 megapixels, and the Canon R7 has a crop sensor with 32 megapixels, so you actually get a higher megapixel count on the crop sensor in this case. Number 2, the next thing on our list is a fancy large camera bag. Now I have one of these bad boys and it's pretty great, but honestly they add a lot of complication to your setup. When you're starting out, you most likely have one camera and one lens, maybe an extra battery. That's your whole kit. And if that's your setup right now, you might be thinking, oh, I wish I had this lens, or I wish I had this piece of equipment, and that's fair enough. But once you get all that equipment and you have a ton of stuff, you're lugging around this extra 30-40 pound backpack with you that is not only heavy to carry, but makes yourself a target because it looks like a camera bag. Not to mention a camera bag like that will run you a good $300-400, and you could spend that money better elsewhere. So until you start getting a ton of camera gear, I'd recommend just chucking your camera in your backpack or your purse or whatever bag you already have. Because a dedicated camera bag is really nice when you have all the gear to lug around, but when you're just throwing a couple things in the bag, it just adds extra hassle. Number 3 on our list, expensive lighting. Lighting gets so ridiculously expensive. You can easily spend a couple $1,000s per light, whether it's strobes or constant light. Either one is expensive. And once again, there's a reason they're expensive, and they do have their benefits, but especially when you're starting out, you can get really good quality results and learn all of the fundamentals of how to light something with cheap Amazon lights. I've been preaching this for years because I bought a kit of 2 of these soft boxes for about $50, and I've used one of those soft boxes as my key light for every YouTube video I've ever made since I bought them. The value you get for these is crazy because there are some drawbacks. Yes, you can't adjust the light, they're not as soft, the quality of light isn't as good as professional lights, but by accepting those drawbacks, you're also saving hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. And as you can see, they still hold up. Another great option is handheld reflectors, you know, those 5-in-1s that fold up. Hold on. One of these bad boys. This thing was about $40 and is basically the same thing as another light. You can buy one light and use this to bounce the light off of it so it hits your face. You can also use these outside to redirect sunlight. They're super versatile and again, a lot cheaper than buying a dedicated light. All right, number 4 on this list, specialized cameras. What do I mean by this? Any type of camera that's dedicated to a very specific task, like a GoPro or any kind of action camera, or a drone. Action cameras and drones are really fun things to have. I have both a GoPro and a DJI mini drone, and although I like and use both of them, I don't use either of them nearly as much as I use my dedicated camera. So unless you're getting into very specific work, like say you want to get hired specifically to do drone photography for real estate or something like that, I would say stick with your main camera setup and put that money towards another lens. That type of gear has its place for sure, but its cost to the actual versatility and the time that you actually spend using it doesn't really balance out that well. All right, number 5 and the last thing on our list is high-end lenses. I'm talking about Canon L lenses, Sony G Master lenses. I forget the name of Nikon's professional line. Now this one is a little controversial because a good quality glass is a great investment in your photography. I'm not saying to never buy high quality lenses. I'm just saying when you're starting out, you don't need to, because I think when you're starting out photography, the most important thing is learning the basics of composition, learning the basics of lighting, and learning the basics of your exposure triangle. Now you can buy an 18 to 135mm lens that's not the best quality, but it has a wide range of zoom on it that will let you practice composing wide shots and really zoomed in shots, and will still let you get a bunch of different types of photos. Another great option is the Canon Nifty 50. 50mm f1.8 lens. It's like less than $200. It's a really good lens for the money. Canon's 50mm f1.8 was actually the first lens that I bought to upgrade from my kit lens. I used that lens on my Canon Rebel T3 for like years, and I took some of my favorite photos on it. That's proof enough to me that you don't need to spend thousands of dollars to get a good photo. Now, once you start talking about doing photography as a business and you're consistently bringing in money, then yeah, I'd recommend going to a pro lens or something similar. You're gonna get a much sharper professional feeling image out of professional glass, but you don't need it to learn how to do photography, and you don't need it to take a good photo. The only time I'd recommend it is if you just have a ridiculous amount of money to burn, or you're making money from your photography business, and this is actually more of an investment in your business. But those are my 5 pieces of camera gear that you don't need. You maybe later on once you have everything set up in your kit, then yeah, get some of this stuff for sure. It's not that this is just generally bad gear to buy, it's just you don't need it right off the bat. I have basically everything that I talked about on this list, but I'm telling you right now, you don't need it. Nice to have? Sure. Will it do better than the cheaper options? Yeah, but it's not going to be that noticeable of a difference, especially when you're starting out and you still have a lot of fundamentals to learn. If you guys want to check out my recommendations for a sort of beginner camera kit, I have my kit.co link in the description. You can click on that and it's a full list of all my camera gear, as well as the camera gear that I would recommend a beginner buys. So if you're thinking about buying a dedicated camera but don't want to be wasting your money on stuff you don't need, that's the kit I'd recommend you check out. Links to my Instagram, TikTok, social media, all that stuff, in the description as well. If you guys like this video, please hit the like button. Consider subscribing if you want to see more stuff like this. I'm trying to post long form content at least once a week now. But that's all I got for you. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.